Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Larco. This is their part number 234475. Ultra Small Replacement 433 megahertz transmitter is what it is. So this is a very simple piece of equipment. It is a transmitter that is going to communicate obviously to a receiver. This will be connected to an actuating device, a micro switch, really is what it's going to be connected to, along with power. So generally what you're going to see this used in would be an automatic door where you have a activation plates, square or round activation plates on either side of an opening or in a vestibule set, and you're going to be able to hit that. The transmitter will communicate to the receiver in the door controller and tell the door to open. There will be a micro switch involved behind the transmitter, behind the activation plate that will activate the transmitter by means of these two flag connectors. So there are two wires, and they call them flag connectors. If you use your imagination, you can see why. Because the micro switch will have three possibilities, but you're only going to use two of the three. One is a common, and you'll always use that. The other two will be normally open or normally closed, and you're going to figure out which of the two that you're going to use. Meaning, is the circuit continuous all the time, or is the circuit continuous only when you've activated the plate? And generally, I would think that normally open is typical for an installation, so that the circuit is open until you activate the plate, allowing the circuit to close, allow current to flow for a prescribed amount of time. And that's just how this works. Power supply, this happens to be a 9-volt. Okay, so very typical and straightforward. And then your little piece of electronics that are here, and it has a self-adhesive mounting pad on the back as well. So there's really not much to say about this. It's very simple and straightforward. There's nothing to do on this. Literally nothing other than connect it. When you go to program this to the receiver, you would be doing that whatever this is connected to, whatever that is connected to, is what you'll be doing that. Now, you could also use this in other ways as well. You could connect a bell button to it where you can close the, you could transmit the signal to be picked up by the receiver, and then an electric strike is held open for a prescribed amount of time. Something like that. So very straightforward and limited only by imagination as to what you could actually use it for. Now, there are installation instructions linked to down below this video, and I'd like to pause and take a look. And like all good transmitters and receivers that we use in our industry, the steps of installation are really simple and straightforward. So let's switch to the screen view now. Okay, so this is the item that we are here indeed looking at. 433 megahertz, ultra small replacement transmitter. That's all we've got. Although we do have a link below this video to the installation instructions. And let's just touch on these quickly. The Larco ultra small receiver and transmitter. This is the installation instructions for both the receiver and the transmitter. And what you're seeing here is the receiver. Okay, this is the transmitter that we're dealing with. You can see it's quite small, 1.25 inches by 7/8. It operates at 433.92 megahertz. Employs a code hopping technology to reduce false activations. The receiver only operates after learning a transmitter signal through the simple procedure outlined on the next page. So we're talking about the receiver right now. The programming procedure eliminates the need to set dip switches and involves a simple press of the programming button located on the top cover of the receiver. Because there's really, I was about to say there's not much for the transmitter to do, but there's more for the transmitter to do than the receiver. Read this document in its entirety. It's important to complete the programming procedure before installing the receiver in its final location, and the installer must have access to the receiver's programming button, which is right here, and must be able to view the receiver's LED during the programming process. By the way, the receiver is part number 233804, so that's what we're working on. It's right here. So the physical connection, where you're going to place it, is all listed right here. They're basically saying, don't install it near the motor or the controller or the power supply. Don't install it when it can be avoided in a metal enclosure. If it is, you're going to have the antenna come out through an access hole. The metal enclosure is going to reduce the ability of the receiver and its reception, and you'll want to be sure that it all works before you put it where it belongs, because you want to make sure that it works first. And then once you install it, and if it doesn't work, it's got something to do with the area in which you've installed it. Typical range on this, I really don't know what the typical range would be, because that's dependent on the environmental conditions. But a wall plate is going to be so many feet away from a door, meaning it's going to be a handful of feet away, but it's not going to be 30 feet away. So what the ultimate reception is going to be, as the saying goes, your mileage will vary. We'll skip over this area because this pertains to the receiver specifically. Now, the programming instructions, there's a really neat feature of this that I like a lot. So prior to programming, you make sure the receiver's LED flashes red when you've got power to it. If it's not flashing red, disconnect the battery and reconnect it. Program the transmitter into the receiver's memory. So the receiver can learn up to 112 transmitters. Follow these steps and repeat A and C for additional transmitters. So step 1, step A, press and release the receiver's programming button, again right here. The LED should change from flashing red to solid green. This means that you are in the receiving mode. Think Bluetooth at this point. Activate and release the transmitter once to confirm that the receiver's LED changes solid red. This indicates that you are in the learning mode. So you're going to take your actuator and just press it. Press and release. Last step, wait a few seconds and then activate the transmitter one more time. And a few seconds is what's important here. The receiver's LED will now flash green several times. This indicates the end of the learning procedure. When the procedure has ended, the LED should be flashing red back how it was normally. Feel free to test. Now, the few seconds, so what you've done is you've pressed it once, it changes, activate and release the transmitter once, and confirm the receiver changes to solid red from flashing green. So it's it starts out flashing red to a solid green to solid red. Then wait a few seconds, press it again, and should be flashing red. Starts out flashing red, ends at flashing red, goes to flashing red to green to solid red to flashing red. Now the few seconds. Wait a few seconds. This transmitter and receiver combination has a time delay built in it, where the contacts will stay activated for a certain amount of time. When the receiver is activated, its outputs will stay in the minimum activation state for approximately 1.5 seconds. That amount of time is governed by how long you wait before you press it a second time. If you want the output of the unit to stay active for 30 seconds, wait 30 seconds. Or 60 seconds, wait 60 seconds. Why would you want that? Well, I could envision that you have a transmitter and a receiver connected to a system that would be an electric deadbolt, that you want to be able to hit the transmitter, unlock the deadbolt, the door will open, the door will take, say, 30 seconds to close, and you want the door to be in the closed position before the power drops off, and the fail secure, it has to be fail secure in this scenario, the fail secure deadbolt will then relock. That could be how you've used it. I've used this with, I've used it in that fashion, and it works. The only downside is you can't hold the door open beyond the activation period, or your bolt's going to relock. But, most people will just set it to a certain, quantity of time well beyond that. And that is how they handle it. So when the receiver is activated, its outputs will stay activated for at least 1.5 seconds. This time can be adjusted to stay in the activation state for up to 4 hours. How do you accomplish that? Press and hold the receiver's programming button for at least 6 seconds. So initially, don't press the programming button, press and hold for 6 seconds, then release. You go to solid red from a flashing red. You're in programming mode. Activate and release the transmitter. At this point, you should be looking at your watch. When the desired time has elapsed, up to 4 hours, hit that transmitter again. You're going to go from flashing red to solid red, flashing green several times, and then it's going to end on flashing red. So press and hold for 6 seconds on the receiver. Let the time run, how long you want it to be, and then you hit the activator again, and you're in good shape. Deleting all transmitters from receiver's memory, that's for the receiver. Now what's important about all of this is right here, 2 amps. You've got to be sure that what you're running through this does not exceed 2 amps. And I can't, any small piece of hardware is not going to exceed that. You're definitely not going to power or try to get electric latch retraction on an exit device with this, or some exit devices, I should say. So your electric strikes, magnetic locks would be fine for this. 24 VAC or DC. So it's 12 or 24, AC or DC. 2 relay outputs, 1 normally open, 1 normally closed. This again is all on the receiver. But it's important to know the system, because if you're dealing with the transmitter, you're dealing with the receiver. Your frequency, 60,000 cycles on the battery life. I don't know how long that would be, but it's just a typical 9 volt. How many times will it be used? Obviously have a 9 volt ready. I do not see that they have any... Oh, here it is. I don't see where they have any indicator that the battery is going bad. Interesting. Well, you're not going to see your receiver, so you won't see any sort of light change that's on there. I might set just a calendar reminder to replace that battery proactively in your transmitter. Okay, let's wrap up this video on camera. Oh, actually, before we do that, the link here below this video to the manufacturer's page that will allow us to review not only all of the Larco products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to a product catalog. Unfortunately, there's not one listed here. And when we hop over to the manufacturer's site, I actually don't see a product catalog. They have to have one. I just don't... Well, they obviously must have a PDF catalog. I just don't see one. But if one becomes available, we will certainly post it to that page. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, a smart little inexpensive piece of technology, very commonly used, extremely commonly used in applications of automatic doors. Frankly, it's very typical to have activation plates wireless versus being hardwired, and this is the product that you're going to use when it's going to be wireless. Adding an automatic door operator to an existing application, running conduit, that's almost always a major issue or problem, or just simply not possible. So, wireless is the way to go in that regard. There is a comprehensive offering of this material from Larco. So if you have any questions on the Larco, their part number 234475 Ultra Small Transmitter, or any other Larco product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.